It is our pleasure at this time to have a discussion with Gary Moore, not the old game show host of TV in the 50s, but rather a county judge from Boone County, Kentucky, and also happens to be president of the National Association of Counties. Gary, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
Last night at this county government gathering where county commissioners and councilmen met, you made a rather off-the-cuff but impassioned plea about the state of the world and the direction that we needed to go. And your message was targeted to government elected officials. If you were to repeat that message to the body politic, the general public at large, how would you change that message? Or what would you tell them?
Well, I don't think I would change it because it's how I truly feel. It's from the heart. And as you recall, I started off by talking about my father serving as a county sheriff and watching him serve the public and, with integrity and honesty and all the things that, go with that. But how different the world is now from those days, which would have been around 1970. So the world is very different. My heart was heavy because of what's happening in my home state as we speak and what was happening last night with the events in Louisville. And the mayor of Louisville, while we're different political parties, he's a large urban county and mine is a bit blended between suburban and rural. But we both share the fact that we are elected local officials at this time. And I had texted him earlier in the day to just tell him my thoughts and prayers were with him and his city last night. The Attorney General that was giving the report is also a friend of mine. And so my heart was heavy, and I think that came through in my comments.
So I think one of the key elements here is that parties are good, but lines need to be crossed and civility needs to return. Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I'm reminded that when things are sometimes at the peak of the issue, we just have to sometimes put aside our differences. It's not that we're going to compromise our core values, but we have to work together. We have to find compromise. We have to find common ground. And if you look back in the history of our nation, that was done, many times, where whether it be Congress or a president working with the opposite party and members of Congress, we're able to do that. And as we think about our nation's capital today, that leadership is needed drastically. It's needed in a big way. But that's not just in D.C. It flows down to our states with our governors and our state legislatures. We're having battles in that area in my home state of Kentucky currently with a Democrat governor and a Republican-controlled Senate and House. A lot of questions about overstepping power during the emergency declarations of COVID-19. And yet we at the local level, at the county level, we still have to clean the streets. We have to answer the call for the barking dog. We've got to serve our constituents and keep things moving, but we need that leadership.
Do you think that the role and the need to understand local government as dysfunctional as federal government is these days, and as precarious as their deficit budgets are, and the fact they just can't seem to move the ball, is local government more important than it has ever been, in your opinion?
Oh, I believe so. The core responsibilities of day-to-day government services that impact people's lives is really done by counties and cities in some cases, and those local government components are essential. But I think we also need to lead from the bottom up in showing that we can compromise, we can come together on a variety of issues. An example, with the sub-allocation of CARES Act dollars to cities and counties. in my state. I was part of a group of 4 that sat down and negotiate the divide of how those monies were going to be allocated to the smaller counties. And we had Democrats and Republicans. We had cities and counties, which can sometimes have very broad differences. But we sat down and we worked it out without really any major conflict. And that needs to happen with a variety of issues at a variety of levels.
So the citizenry, what do they need to know about the efforts of their county leaders? Because people tend to always be a little bit suspicious of local elected officials, and as you say, you grew up with Andy of Mayberry as a dad, and you saw the good heart of public service. How do people need to embrace that, or what do they need to do to make life easier for and have a trust in their local elected officials? Why would somebody run for office? That's my question.
Well, it's a great question because it can become very ugly, very personal, and with social media, it really is not a truth check, a fact check. So someone throws something out, and we sure don't do it for the compensation because local government doesn't pay a great salary. So we do it because we love our communities and we want to serve. We are the level of government that can be found in the grocery store or at church on Saturday or Sunday, or we can be found in the local community. And often we do hear about frustrations with our state government and our federal government. I try to as best I can share those. I think I'm fortunate in that my congressman, I have regular conversations with both Senator McConnell and Senator Rand Paul, and they ask me, and I give my input as to what I hear and what I feel. And I think many local officials have that same level of communication, or the ability to, in most cases, with their members. We just hope that it's heard and that it's followed more as we go forward. But I think that's part of our job as local officials, to be the voice for the community.
Do you think that if the federal delegations in Kentucky would listen more to the local government, that they would be able to more effectively discharge their duties?
I do, and I do think they do recognize we're there. Maybe sometimes not at the total value that we would like to see it, but I also understand that they have a lot of other elements that work into their decisions. And I cannot imagine being the leader of the Senate in our nation's capital, because you gotta know that every member that's there, they're all class presidents, and they all are leaders. They all have their positions, and to try to assemble and coordinate those caucuses and come together with compromise would have to be a monumental task. So I also respect that, and I get the nature of what takes place. I'm very hopeful that after the November election, that we will see a desire to come together and get some things done. There are many issues that shouldn't be political. Things like a new transportation reauthorization bill to provide transportation funding to our states, which flows to the local communities. I mean, what's Republican or Democrat about how to fix a pothole or how to put up a guardrail or widen a road? Things like that, I'm hopeful that we'll see the civility and the cooperation return once we get past the election. I sure don't expect it between now and November, though.
Well, that's probably very true. I think the last area that I'd like to engage in is you are representing a national association that is made up of county elected officials of all stripes and colors and all kinds of positions within the county. I think there are, 2,300-ish counties across the nation?
It's actually 3,069 counties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, there have been some new ones that have come along since I counted last. Anyway, with 3,000 counties out there, what is the value of local governments? Because I know these guys locally get a lot of flack for saying, why are you off to, WIR, which is the Western Intermountain Region? Why are you off to NACO? Why are you off to the legislative fly-in, spending local dollars to go do this? Are you joyriding? What is the value of NACO?
Oh my goodness, and I've had that question at home. Actually, in my last election, my opponent brought it up that Gary's going to be gone a lot if he wins this election, and if I win, I'll be here in the office. And I think the approach of traveling, interacting with other locally elected officials across our country, learning from them, whatever we're trying to accomplish in Boone County, Kentucky, has probably already been tried and either worked or failed somewhere else. And if I can learn from that, if we can share best practices, if we can have that camaraderie where we can have a think tank of, if I want to throw an issue out about how to expand broadband to my rural part of my county, I can learn from others, just as one example, but also the advocacy that we can have in our nation's capital. Most of our counties can't afford a federal lobbyist. And I would say that what we spend in a plane ticket and maybe a hotel room for a night or two, a few times a year, compared to hiring a federal lobbyist, is a great savings to our taxpayers. NACO staff and the knowledge and expertise they have and the relationships they build with key members of staff, of key members of Congress, get us in the door. They get us audiences with a chairman of a committee that may not be from my state. I would never get that audience with the chair of transportation or the chair of an environmental committee without NACO. So it allows us to have our voice heard, to have boots on the ground in DC every day, and to build those relationships. And the value of that is enormous. So I think it's one of the greatest expenditures that a county can make, is to invest in our National Association.
Last question. What is your advice for somebody sitting at home that's never held an elective office, and it's Sunday morning, they're in their bathrobe? What is your message to them about local government and what they should be doing as citizens?
Well, I would love to see our communities have a better knowledge and understanding of what we really do. My title is County Judge Executive. That alone confuses people greatly. I'm basically the county mayor, but the title of my office alone makes it seem confusing. But the fact of what we are responsible for, what we do, and the fact that we can impact their lives in a greater way. So I would like for our residents to take some time to really study their local government. And I know this is being viewed here in Utah, and I'm not sure where else, but each state is so different. The powers of my county would be very different from a county here. So I urge our residents to really understand their local government, the structure, to be involved. Our meetings are all public. They're open to the public. And if someone has an issue they want to be heard, I encourage them to maybe first call their county representative, whether it's a commissioner or a council member or county executive, whatever it might be. But reach out and have a conversation, and then if necessary, attend a public meeting and speak about that issue that they feel passionate about. I have an open mic at every meeting at the end for any other business, and I love that part of the meeting because someone might show up with an issue that is nowhere on my radar, but it's very important to them because they took the time to come and speak. And I'd like to see more of that, more engagement, more knowledge and education of what local government means and what it does.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back in a minute.